Hello and welcome everybody to the Return of the Paddock podcast. I'm excited to bring loads more of exhilarating information and news to you as the seasons progress, as we're now on episode 2 of the Chasing Glory series, following a promising F2 driver. We're going to go ahead and jump into this weekend here in Jeddah with some input from some of the commentators that you are already familiar with, so enjoy.
Well, hello everybody, I'm Will Buxton, and welcome to this exciting weekend as we are here in Jeddah. Lots of racing going on as we just wrapped up the short but important practice session for F2, aren't we, Ted?
You're absolutely right, Will. A lot of the drivers on the F2 grid looking to make up some lost points compared to the previous race in Bahrain. And I'm sure we are sure to see closer racing along the first street circuit of the F2 season. And I'm looking in the direction of Virtuosi and Johnson in particular, as he had to deal with a puncture on the left rear just before the checkered flag. So we will definitely be looking forward to their performance this weekend.
And that's going to be all the time we have for now as we head into qualifying for F2. See you then.
Confirmed.
As we wind down from the excitement of qualifying, here's a look at your top three.
Lawson, Pourchaire, Clement Novalak.
It's time to leave for now, but we'll be back tomorrow when the feature race gets itself underway.
Hello and welcome to the Jeddah Street Circuit, where the excitement is building for what I'm sure will be an exciting Formula 2 race here in Saudi Arabia. So let's examine the Jeddah Street Circuit. As you can see, this has the potential to be a very challenging track for our young F2 drivers. We'll get a good chance to see which of them have been able to best capitalise on their time spent here in practice earlier this weekend. And like the other street circuits on the calendar, the lack of runoff is going to make sections of this track very punishing if the drivers get it wrong. Let's hope we avoid having to bring out the safety car this time around. As we await the start of another hugely anticipated Formula 2 race, I'm joined again by Davide Valsecchi. Davide, as a former GP2 champion, can we get some insight to what is running through these young drivers' heads as they sit out on the grid?
Ciao Alex, it's a pleasure to be here. There are nervy moments, there is no doubts about that. Mental strength is the key to remaining calm and focusing on the upcoming race. Formula 2 is so competitive and all of these drivers knows that they are going to be pushing each other all of the way. In this sport, you have to be able to control your nerves.
The formation lap gets underway for this, the Formula 2 race, and every driver will be looking to settle in for the race ahead, making sure the car is ready for battle once the lights go out. We are almost ready to start the Formula 2 race as the cars take their positions on the grid, with the drivers and teams making their final preparations.
Hello everyone, as the drivers are off to a decent start, we're actually going over the highlights of the F2 race here in Jeddah, as there have been some technical difficulties.
You're right, Alex. Even though there were some issues, we can still go over what had happened as we're on board with the virtuosi of Johnson off the start and through the first two corners as he's trying to find his way through the pack to get that much needed grid slot early on in this race. We actually see him jumping up to P4. from his start in P6.
Well, moving on now to lap 5, it looks like we have Drugovic attacking Johnson for P4 as they come up to the last corner before the main straight. Great angle there from Johnson as he gets as close as he can to that inside wall for a good launch to defend.
We're on to the very next lap as we get a great vantage point of the fight going on. Drugovic already had overtaken Johnson, and Vips is right there in the fight, as well as we come up to that same final corner. Johnson trying to hold on to that outside line and has Vips right up next to him, but he is able to hold on to that P5 spot as he continues to chase down Drugovic.
Moving along to Sector 2 on the same lap, we have Johnson still trying to chase down Drugovic as he actually makes contact with the wall several times. This must be a result of the tyre wear, as he ends up losing a few positions now back in P6 where he started the race.
Moving on to the final lap of action for this F2 sprint, and Johnson has lost yet another position now back in P7. As he still would score some points in his current position, he actually loses a bit of traction and loses another position back to P8 now, as Novalek passes him through Sector 2 onto Sector 3, as he is still fighting as best as he can as we're nearing the final corner of the sprint.
And you can really see Johnson trying to put the power down, the back end trying to come out on him as he manages it pretty well actually, side by side with Hughes, with others following though the second to last DRS straight, working their way up to the final corner of the sprint as drivers are trying as hard as they can to find an opening for a good finishing position. Johnson still able to hold on to P8 for the sprint.
Stuff from Dams today. What a superb victory. Davide, what do you think made the difference here?
This race, this win, was about one thing and one thing only: consistency. Anyone can be quick for just one lap, but there's a difference between that and being quick every lap, over and over and over. If you can do that, if you can gain ground when your opponents make mistakes, but then not make mistakes on your own, you can just push and push.
Dams, another team with a huge amount of history based right in the heart of motorsport near Le Mans in France, have once again shown their formidable abilities out on the track with yet another win today. Greetings and welcome to Jeddah for what promises to be a thrilling Formula 2 race. So an interesting circuit, Jeddah. Like some other street circuits in the Formula 2 calendar, it's likely to present a formidable technical challenge with a number of challenging turns for our young drivers to master. Plus, it's a hot track, and that high temperature has some big implications for tyre performance that they'll need to keep in mind in order to secure a good result. We are nearly ready for the start of today's race, but in the meantime, let's take a look at the grid. An immense lap from Liam Lawson yesterday puts him on pole position. And starting alongside in P2 is Teo Porcher. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Novalek, Drugovic, Johnson and Vips, Armstrong, Iwasa, Williams, J.N. Deruvala, Hughes, Calderon, Marino Sato, Enzo Fittipaldi, and for sure, Vesti, Sargent, Dennis Hauger, Caldwell, Boschong, Cordial, and Roy Nissany completes the grid. Now it's almost time to lights out, so let's get down to the track. In the commentary box of the big race today, I'm Alex Jakes, and joining us once again, it's Davide Valsecchi. Davide, as well as being the 2012 GP2 champion, you also have experience as a test driver in F1. What would you say are the biggest differences for people fresh to the world of F2?
Well, Alex, I think it's an exciting time in Formula 2 right now. For spectators, a lot of excitement comes from all the drivers being in the same car. That puts the emphasis on driver skills, meaning lots of overtakes, which means exciting race for us.
The formation lap gets underway for this, the Formula 2 race, and every driver will be looking to settle in for the race ahead, making sure the car is ready for battle once the lights go out. We are almost ready to start the Formula 2 race as the cars take their positions on the grid, with the drivers and teams making their final preparations.
All right, so we're off to an okay start after the finish there from the sprint. As we're coming up to the grid, and if you guys noticed, we forgot to do the replay, record the replay for the sprint race, so that's why we had to do the commentary over the feature, or the highlight. So yeah, starting P5 once again here as the rest of the cars come up to the grid, and I believe that's the dams there in the back. And looking forward to seeing what we can do with this two-stop race here. 5 red lights are coming on. Novalak and Drugovic ahead of us. As surprisingly, we got a puncture here on the front left. As you can see, the tire is kind of off-centered. And it turns out we have a puncture on the rear left as well. So we ran these medium tires too hard during the sprint race. That's going to be a very unfortunate start for us. I've got a puncture off the start, front left.
We understand. Just make your way back to the pits. Everyone is going to switch out of their mediums on lap 1.
And that was going to be the strategy for literally the entire grid, was a one-lap run on the mediums. We're on board here with Sato P14 as he's trying to find a position against Versure and Hughes before they get to the pit lane. As we're still limping on through Sector 1 at this point. We're already 34 seconds ahead. You can see there on the bottom in P22 behind Cordial and Boshung. Now, at the end of lap 1, Sato and everybody coming in single file into the pits to get off of these used medium tires. I believe it's a required two-stop race for the future race. So you can see those grid changes coming through the pit stops, and we're just starting to go through Sector 2 here as we're taking our time. And you can see a lot of the teams, if not majority of the teams, double stopping. The other cars sticking out as we had a good viewpoint there from Versure. As we're going up the grid to Sato, making it up to P8. So P14 to P8 through those pit stops, those double stops. See, we're already a minute 40 as we're coming through Sector 3. Still trying to baby these tires, making sure we don't have any more punctures. The front left is a full puncture. The rear left is a partial puncture. On board with Porcher. They're on lap 2, coming through Sector 2, almost to Sector 3. So 2 minutes now we are behind. As coming around to the last corner, you can't see Porcher yet, but he is getting ever so closer. So we move out of the way, knowing that they're going to be getting closer and closer here. Yellow marker there. And Porcher coming through the final corner here to round out the end of lap 2. And you can see how much farther ahead he is. He is about 4.4 seconds ahead of Daruvula. As Vips in P3 is behind as well. And we're in for our first pit stop. And not very happy about this today, as we're lapped on the second race of the season. And it's not really looking any promising today for the feature race, but we did manage to score a few points. As you can see, you could hear the rest of the cars on the grid passing us. Majority of the grid actually going to be passing us as we're coming out of the pits. And yeah, so we could have had a definite better race than it has been so far. And I knew not to just give up. And I knew to push through the end of the race and finish. You can see the blue flag marker there on the right as we come out. I believe we come out in front of Nissani and Busheng. I'm not quite sure. We go a little wide there, coming out on the soft tires. And I believe that's the dams of Novalak or Drugovich. One of the two. Not quite sure. But there were still a few, so I believe that was Drugovich. I don't know entirely for sure. But we're going to be making our way over to lap 3. Caldwell, yet again, coming through the end of Sector 2, start of Sector 3. You hear them going down to the gears, as that's going to be another DNF from Caldwell. So very unfortunate for them, as we see for sure passing, as well as Drugovich there in the orange. So I believe that was Novalak that passed us. And that's going to be no, that's not Caldwell. That is green. That is, I believe that is Nissani or Busheng. I'm not quite sure. I'm not familiar with how the cars are for the F2 drivers, but P21, lap 3 for us, as we're lapped down by pretty much the entirety of the grid.
All right, Crofty, I know there have been plenty of mishaps for this feature race, especially with Johnson, but how do you think the drivers are stacking up compared to Bahrain?
Well, Alex, there's plenty of drivers that are performing better than last week. I noticed that our current top runners from the start of the feature race are performing exceptionally better than last week. And I wanted to backtrack a bit to Johnson and what happened with him. If you remember, the entire grid came in at the end of the first lap to swap out of the medium tyres. And this is because F2 drivers are limited on what tyre compounds they can use for each session. And the result of the early punctures from Johnson is due to, most likely, how hard he pushed during the sprint race. So the teams will make sure that their drivers know to manage their tyres throughout the entire weekend. I'm sure we will see some improvement from Johnson here on out.
Well, it's going to be another unfortunate race weekend for Virtuosi, as only one of their drivers managed to finish in the points. My name is Alex, alongside Crofty, and we will see you at the next race.
A great win then for the ART team today. Tell me, Davide, what was the key to this success?
I think they kept a cool head. That's why they won today. Smooth, steady, everything bad that happened to them, they handled it calmly and professionally. That's what let them focus on getting the best out everything else. The car, the strategy, they managed to keep out of trouble the whole way round.
An amazing race today, and a very well-deserved one too. The team worked very hard to get exactly the right setup out of the F2 car that works for them, and the results speak for themselves. ARTGP winners today. Liam Lawson extends his lead at the top, getting ever closer to securing the championship. So then, it's time to see how this result affects the Drivers' Championship. Now then, Davide Valsecchi, who would you say was your driver of the day?
My driver of the day was Theo Purcher. He did a cracking job moving through the field. Just a very good race.
And now a look at the team standings. Carlin have extended their lead at the top of the standings. Meanwhile, a strong weekend from ART this time out, and they improved their position in the championship. After all this drama, you would be mad not to join us for the next race. We hope to see you then. Take care.
What a race weekend here in Jeddah for F1 Academy, F2 and F1. And we're moving on to the next segment of our Paddock podcast schedule as we dive into the events of the F2 races. And with me here is Johnson from Virtuosi to talk about what mishaps occurred for them today.
Well, I honestly feel like there was a lot that happened. Not so much during the sprint, but most definitely during the feature race.
Did you expect your tyres to have punctures at the start of the feature race after your points finish in the sprint?
That's the hard thing about driving as an F2 driver, is they're giving us a mandatory 2-stop because our tire life doesn't manage to last through the entire race. So we had to use the medium tires, and I didn't realize that they were that bad coming up to the point of the start of the race.
All right. That's all the time we have for F2 today, as we move on to the events of F1. We will see you guys in the next episode.